Good evening.
Hello. We've talked a lot about mental struggles and how we run into so many blocks dealing with our mind. And you make reference to checking in with your body.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about some of the struggles that we have physically.
Physically, in what sense?
I just deal with a lot of chronic pain, and then coming to this kind of setting, then of course doing repeated sittings creates a lot of pain.
Yeah. Well, it's, again, the suffering part. Pain is pain. Okay? There's no necessarily getting away from pain. Suffering is something different than pain. It's very important to realize. Suffering is what's caused by the resistance to pain. And very often, an immense amount of our physical pain is actually caused by unconscious resistance to experiencing physical pain. And when you can start to see the resistance to pain, because the resistance to pain is also comes through the body as a tension. Body does this, right? It tenses in pain, which is that's a physical way of resisting the sensation of it. It's a habitual sort of reaction. And then mentally, of course, it goes on from there, doesn't it? Oh God, I can't possibly make it. But tomorrow it'll be terrible, or, it goes into future. And that's another form of resistance. But start to notice the difference between pain and suffering.
And I feel like there's a connection for me. A lot of my stillness, there seems like there's a detachedness, and it seems like there's a connection there where I have a detached sense to my body.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I've heard you speak before about vividness in meditation. And it feels like there's the connection for that between me, or for me, between having more of that drab experience versus something that's more vivid. Yeah.
Well, a stillness that has any sort of resistance in it is going to be sort of dry. As a stillness that's being used as a means to not experience something else, as a refuge, you could say, in any way, either overtly or subtly, that will cause a certain, that is a sort of dull stillness. And then there's a different stillness, which isn't being used as a refuge at all, as a means not to experience or anything. It's just the already present stillness, which isn't a refuge, which isn't a escape, which isn't an opposition. It's just, oh, it is here. This awareness is stillness. It's vivid. I don't mean vivid that means like, you feel like you're plugged into an electric socket and you're, just like rays shining out from that. That's not the vividness I'm speaking of. I use the word vividness just as a contrast between, drowsy, half-drugged, evasive silence. Do you can feel what I feel? There's a difference there. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you can feel this in your body. There's a way of being still, which is almost like it's like a leaning back into almost like the witness position, huh? You can almost, even if your body didn't move, you can almost feel like a backward movement. And that's a certain type of stillness and a certain type of witnessing. But that eventually has a dryness to it. Then there's a stillness if you almost like lean forward. You leaned into. And that stillness is bright. Not screaming bright, but it's just bright. It's vivid. It's present. It's here. It's now. It's also detached in the sense that it's not hung up in the goo, but it's detached right in the midst of anything. And you can literally feel the difference if you sit in your seat. You can sort of go back and it's sort of, you can just feel yourself disappearing in sort of the transcendent, very spacey and very, pleasant. But if you hang out there too much, all of a sudden it gets a little dry. It starts to dry up on you. And then you just lean forward a little bit and it's just like coming out of a fog. You are present. So check it out a little bit like that. Yeah? And see that pain is one thing, but the suffering, it's just a resistance to pain. And just start to notice, don't try to get in there and change it and everything. Just start to notice, oh, it's just not necessary. It's just not necessary to resist some pain. It's not necessary, and it doesn't help. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's time. And be sensitive to your being too. Sometimes there's just pain, and there's just going to be pain, but also don't push. When I was in Zen, they would always encourage, sit through the pain, sit through the pain, sit through the pain, sit through the pain, sit through the pain. And hell, I was an endurance athlete. Sit through the pain. I know how to do that. I can do that for hours on end. I do it every day. I ride my bike 100 miles a day. So I would, curl up in the full lotus and my knees would be blowing up and I would just sit through the pain. And I had had many years of learning pain management. It's part of endurance athletics. You just learn pain management. And I just managed and managed and managed and managed and managed for years and years and years. And I just sat through it and sat through it and sat through it and sat through it. Until my entire leg went numb. And never came back to feeling much. And I went to the doctor, and through a whole long series of tests and explorations, they eventually did about a 10-inch cut behind backside of my leg and opened it up and said, "Oh, how interesting. You have torn your tendon away from the bone. How did you do that?" The nerve that runs behind your leg, which is about the size of your finger, it has so much scar tissue around it, it's being compressed. No wonder you have radiating pain and numbness all over your being. Oh, let us get rid of some of that scar tissue, and while we're at it, let's reattach that tendon to your leg here. It might help you. So they did all this wild surgery, and it was a real wake-up call. There I was, sitting, doing this to my body in the name of Buddhist compassion. You know? Sitting through pain. I was apparently the wrong person to tell to do that. I would have broke my bones if somebody told me that would get me to enlightenment. I mean, I literally just would have looked over at that thing and just went, crunch. I'm not joking. And it wouldn't have helped one bit. So also if there is pain, because I know I get this question a lot with pain, yes, be with the pain, realize you don't have to resist it, but also, don't be sensitive. Be sensitive to your being. Listen to what it wants. Listen to what it needs. follow it rather than dictate to it. You may save yourself a lot of physical trouble. We're past time. When we come back, okay? I know we're past time. Enjoy your evening. Namaste.